The Tarokka reading is an awesome part of Curse of Strahd, the idea that you draw these cards and your players are steered to different parts of the module and that they potentially have a completely different game to another group of players and another DM. But it's risky. There's a few card choices that could mean that items are really easy to get straight away, including super powerful items they can obtain from level 3, or that some are really difficult to get hold of because they're buried away in a castle, which isn't an endgame dungeon, but kind of sort of is. The idea of this video is to, if you've done the card reading and you've ended up with an item that's easily obtainable or very difficult to obtain, or the items aren't really in the order that you want your players to find them in, this video will hopefully be for you. We're going to talk about how you can potentially adapt and fix certain cards of the card reading and get your campaign back on track. Greetings fellow Mist Wanderers, my name is Steve Morgan and this is DM of the Mists, covering all things Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft. So yes, as I said in the intro, it might be the case you've just done the Tarokka reading and you've got what might be considered a bad draw. An item has ended up in or just outside Madam Eva's tent, there's an item nearby, or there's items in Castle Ravenloft as a few examples. This video will talk about ideas and solutions potentially change or delay obtaining the item. It's a bit of a niche video. I appreciate that it's not really something that people want to watch unless it's something that affects them. I do have people who tend to watch any video I put out, which is amazing. I love you guys. So if this doesn't really apply to you, but you're watching it anyway, please jump in with more suggestions and ideas beyond what I've suggested in the comments. I'm sure there might be people who are researching this who would appreciate the help. This video assumes you know, or you've probably just done the Tarokka reading, so I don't need to explain what the Tarokka reading is and how it works. But if you don't know what the Tarokka reading is and how it works, I did a video all about the Tarokka reading, give an example, draws, as if you were doing it from the book, including, I think one of the example draws is literally like everything's in Castle Ravenloft, hooray! And alternative ways people do it, including a resource I put on DM's Guild that can help as well. But if you are in this situation where you've just done the draw, that's of no use to you. Let's get to it and talk about different ways you might be able to fix it. So what happens if they get hold of the Sunsword early? So there's the three items. There's the Tome of Strahd. You kind of want your players to get that early-ish anyway. There's a Holy Symbol of Ravenkind. That's a nice one. It's kind of mid-game-ish. And then the Sunsword is best if it's kind of near the end, just before they face off against Strahd. What if they get the Sunsword almost immediately? Well, one idea I've seen on various discussions, so I can't take credit for this, but it's one of those things where I've seen like on Reddit over the years, so I don't know who the sort of originator is or the first person to have ever come up with this idea. A cool idea I've seen is, you know, there's Argynvost and you return Argynvost's skull and you light the beacon. The Sunsword doesn't work when they get hold of it initially. Even if you try and shoot into it, nothing happens. They've got to light it in the beacon. You have Argynvost. That's a cool idea. That means that, you know, they even if they get the Sunsword at level 3, Argynvost, if memory serves, is kind of like a level 7, 8, 9-ish area. So, and hats off, hey, if they manage to do it earlier than that, then, you know, hats off to them. They just kind of earned it and deserve it. But yeah, that's a good way to potentially delay having the Sunsword and not giving them the benefits of that straight away. This card, this cheeky card, the Diviner card, this is the one that says, look to the one who sees all. The treasure is hidden in her camp. Treasure lies in Madam Eva's encampment. I'm looking at the screen over here, by the way. If she's the one performing the card reading, she says, I think the treasure is under my nose. So the solution to this one only works if you are watching this or researching how to fix a bad Tarokka reading, if you end your session as soon as you finish the card reading. So maybe Madam Eva has mentioned she's got it, but hasn't given it to them yet. If she's given it to them, say if it's like the Sunsword, you do the whole beacon thing I just mentioned a minute ago. If it's the Tome of Strahd, it's a shame they get that straight away, but, you know, you kind of want them to get that soonish anyway to learn more about Strahd. One idea is that maybe Madam Eva gives them a quest. The book does actually say, and I quote, she never gives aid and never asks for any. That's in the Sir Falls information write-up. But given these circumstances, maybe she makes an exception. One idea could be that she senses that Arabelle is in danger, which I think in one of the other cards, she's like, I think if Arabelle's the ally, it's something like, quick to the lake, rescue her. Maybe she does that. And she'll give the item if they then, and they got to basically go to Vallaki and back then. So, you know, it's a little later on in the campaign they would be able to do it. Another idea is she says, look to the one who sees all the treasures hidden in her camp, but she doesn't say it's her. And Arabelle, no, rules is written, Ezmerelda can do the card reading for people. I'm going to talk more about that later. Arabelle, it doesn't say does, but I've seen people tweak it that she does. And I think it says that she's a descendant of Madam Eva. So it makes sense that she's potentially a future seer. So maybe she's the one who sees all in the future, and therefore instead of it being in Madam Eva's camp, it's in the Vallaki Vistani camp. Now this all goes out the window if you said that I think it's under my nose thing, but that's a potential idea if you didn't say that and you've ended your session immediately after the card reading. This card, the Thief card. What you seek lies at the crossroads of life and death, amongst the buried dead. The treasure is buried in the graveyard of the Ivlis Crossroads. The Ivlis Crossroads is literally just south of the Vistani camp. So as soon as they leave the Vistani camp and then they head their way to Vallaki, presumably, if you're kind of following the beats of the module, they will get it. But one idea I had, and I want to say I came up with this myself, but the difficult thing is I've been on the Curse of Strahd subreddit for years now, and chances are I might say I come up with this myself and someone else has already said it, whether I've seen it or not. But an idea I had is there's a great monster in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft called the Gallows Speaker. It's essentially sort of like a ghostly figure that appears in a place where there's been lots of death, such as a gallows. Hey, that's the name of the monster. And maybe if they get there at level 3 and they're like, great, we look for this item that's buried in one of these graves, you say that the Gallows Speaker appears and says something like, you are not ready for this item yet. And if the players don't take the hint, maybe some skeletons or zombies pop out of the graves as well. So it's not just a Gallows Speaker on its own, it's a bunch of monsters. And they've got a choice then. They can try and fight it at level 3, probably get their bottoms kicked, and then realise, oh, maybe we should get it later. Or, and if they do manage to get it, then I'd say they've kind of earned it. But yeah, that could be a thing that kind of, this thing appears and says you're not ready for this yet. It's kind of a hint to say, right, we'll come back here when we're level 4 or 5 or 6, and so on and so on. This card, the Rogue card. I see a nest of ravens. There you will find the prize. It's hidden in the attic of the Blue Water Inn. This one probably isn't too bad because it is Vallaki. If it's the Tome of Strahd as well, that's probably great. But if it was, say, the Holy Sword of Ravencon or the Sunsword, well, it's kind of buried away. Unless, you've got a cheeky rogue who sneaks in and finds it. If they talk to the Martikovs about it, to talk about the clue, the Martikovs might say, well, we're not just going to give you this thing. If you help us, we'll help you. Maybe they've got to do the Wizard of Wines quest. Maybe they've got to do Yes the Hill. If it's a Sunsword, maybe say they've got to do Perez. Delay it and say, well, we'll give you this thing if you help us, kind of thing. And let's talk about if it ends up being one of the castle locations. Or say if you've got multiple in the castle and maybe one's easy to access, like the chapel, which I'll talk more about that later. Or maybe if there's one that's, buried right in the crypts. Well, if you look in the random encounter section of Castle Ravenloft, Ezmerelda is one of the random encounters. It's one of the 4 places in the module she can be found. I think it's 4 places. And you could justify the fact that the module kind of tells you that she's there means that, you might be able to say that if they then meet her at Kresk or Van Richten's Tower or something. Van Richten's Tower works really well because she's just travelled back from the castle is part of the sort of the special event in the story. She tried to fight Strahd, retreated to the tower. She could say, well, I grabbed this thing while I was there, and she gives them the tome or the Holy Symbol of Ravenkind, for example. That could be a good way to do it. So she, you play it that she was there, she was having a snoop around, which is what it says in the random encounters, and she gets hold of one of the items and gives it to the players. I don't think that's too unreasonable or too outside of what the scope of the module is kind of hinting at. But if it is the Priest card, which indicates the chapel, or the Dictator card that indicates the Audience Hall, they are very close to the entrance. And what you could do is if Strahd gives them the dinner invitation, and you do the dinner invitation like a lot of DMs do, where it's not a trap, as the module kind of suggests, and it's actually more of sort of like a diplomatic meeting. It's a meet and greet. When I did it, I had it that he gave a small tour, they met the consorts, the tour showed them the chapel, went up the stairs to the audience hall, back down again. Could be that that's a great opportunity then for finding one of the items. Or if he doesn't give the tour, because then it'd be a bit weird if he's walking past and goes, what's the hell on the floor? Then maybe he doesn't give them the tour, but they know they can probably sneak off from the dining room to just the chapel to quickly grab it, kind of thing. And if you have a case where Strahd and the item in the same location, so the 5th card that you draw is Strahd's location in the castle, but sometimes an item can also end up there. So for example, if it's the chapel is where an item ends up and Strahd is meant to be in the chapel as part of the end game, I would have it, unless it is actually the end game, I would have it that Strahd isn't there. So, and that's a hint to the players as well of now's not the time. You're not ready to fight Strahd yet. Strahd isn't going to fight you yet. And then you haven't got the worry of, oh no, if they go in the place, they're going to see Strahd waiting for them as well as trying to grab the item. They can just grab the item, go, and then in the future, when they go back to the chapel, for example, Strahd is waiting. Another idea, it's not ideal, but another idea you could do if you have a bad draw is a redraw. Rules as written, Ezmerelda can give a card reading. Perhaps if one card is really difficult, once they meet Ezmerelda, they tell her about the clues, because maybe we can change it. And she, draws the cards if she's got access to her deck and is able to change it. That's kind of, a bit cheeky to say that, she can just change the location of it. And then you might be thinking, I like to see it as Vistani magic, Tarokka magic. It was in this one place, it's now in this other place. I know there are some DIMs who'll justify, well, how can we explain it was no longer in the castle and it's in this other location, for example? I'll let you worry about that. Hey, I'm just giving you ideas. You can use them or not use them. But Ezmerelda, could you give a redraw? Arabelle isn't, I mentioned this earlier, Arabelle isn't somebody who can give a card reading rules as written, but she is a descendant of Madam Eva, therefore I think it's allowable. Or you do the whole thing that Madam Eva does if she draws the Mists card, where she says, this is if she draws the Mist card for where Strahd is. It says, she tells characters to return to her in at least 3 days. She'll consult the cards again for them, but only to discern the location of the enemy. Again, you're going against rules as written, maybe apply that to items as well. She might be able to say, yeah, if you don't like some of these, let me try again 3 days later and see what we get then. Another thing you could consider for something, going back to the items and going back to the castle, is you might be able to rework some of the meanings, assuming that you've read them straight out of the book. See what you think, but it's, there might be some that you think, well, yeah, you can wrangle it so that it's no longer about the castle, it's about somewhere else in Barovia, perhaps somewhere that's, more easily accessible, and you just need to make a few tweaks to make it make sense in terms of what the clue is. For example, I'll run through a few examples. For the Mercenary card, the thing you seek lies with the dead under mountains of gold coins. Now, this is one of the crypts in the castle. There's also huge mountains of coins in the Amber Temple. Add some dead bodies next to it, then it's lying with the dead and the mountains of coins. That is also a location for a different card, so just bear that in mind if you draw that as well. 2 items in one location or what have you. Transmuter. Go to a place of dizzying heights where the stone itself is alive. This refers to Castle Ravenloft's North Tower Peak. Dizzying heights because it's a super tall tower. Stone alive because it's the Heart of Sorrow tower and the stairs move. It's not ideal, but the idea I had was, originally I had the idea of like any tower, but then dizzying heights makes me think of somewhere really high up, and the only place I thought of that kind of works where there's a tower that's high up is Selenka Pass. There's a little tower there just beyond the green curtain, the gate. Make the stone alive, I don't know. Maybe there's some sort of, you sort of apply the Heart of Sorrow thing on like a small scale to that staircase as well. Maybe there's a way to justify it that way. For Swashbuckler, I see the skeleton and the deadly warrior lying on a bed of stone flanked by gargoyles. That's another crypt. That could be anywhere really where you can justify a deadly warrior and a bed of stone. You could homebrew it and just say this deadly warrior is buried somewhere. You could have it be, what's the name of the barbarian yesterday? I want to say Kavan. Yeah, maybe it's Kavan, underneath the ground. He might be lying on a bed of stone. You just need to add some gargoyles. They could be gargoyle statues. They could be gargoyles actually become actual gargoyles. The monster. Another example might be somewhere in Argynvost. I mean, technically, the deadly warrior could be Argynvost. His whole body is missing its skull, but the body's there. Put some stone gargoyles there, and that's where the item could be now. Merchant. Seek a cask that once contained the finest wine, of which not a drop remains. This is Castle Ravenloft's wine cellar, and by the finest wine, I'm assuming it means the champagne. In fact, I'll look up the information. Yes, it is the Champagne de le Stomp. Perhaps there's an empty cask of that champagne in the Wizard of Wine and Winery. Perhaps there's an empty cask of it in Grezg, in the Abbey. Perhaps there's an empty cask of it at the Blue Water Inn still. There's a couple of ways you could wrangle that. Miser. Look for a fortress inside a fortress in a place hidden behind fire. This refers to the Treasury in Castle Ravenloft. The fortress in a fortress being the Treasury inside Castle Ravenloft, hidden behind fire, the fireplace. This one's kind of tenuous at best. It could be, it's suddenly starting to rain really heavy. Sorry if you can hear that in the background. It could be that it's in the model of Castle Ravenloft in the Amber Temple. The Amber Temple isn't a fortress, but it kind of is. Hidden behind fire, there's a whole corridor of flame skulls. Like I say, it's not the best, but that's one way to move something in Castle Ravenloft into the Amber Temple. If it's something like the Sunsword, that could be good. And if you drew the Shepherd card, find the mother, she who gave birth to evil. That's supposed to be the Queen's tomb in Crypts in Castle Ravenloft. There were two women involved in Strahd's birth. There was the Queen, and there was Saga, who was the midwife who sort of thinks she's Strahd's mother. So when it says find the mother, it means the actual birth mother, but you know, find the woman who thinks she's the mother could give you an opportunity to move it to Berez. Don't forget as well, people can help with the clues. People like Rudolf van Richten and Ezmerelda, those two especially, I think. Maybe even the Martikovs at a push. And that as an opportunity allows you, the DM, to sort of usher the players to the new place it ends up being. For instance, Ez says while she was wandering Barovia, she found the gargoyle statues that they're looking for, to do with the one where I said about the Deadly Warrior and the gargoyle statues. She might be able to say that. Or then she might know of, one of them might know of the Amber Temple and say, oh yeah, one or two of the things got moved there, maybe that's where the clue is. So there's ways to help them. Just in case the players think, oh, that sounds like it's the castle, you can have these NPCs say, no, it's not the castle, it could be this place, and kind of hint, hint, wink, wink, that, you know, they should be going somewhere else. That's it for this one. I really hope it helps people if you're in a situation where you've just done the draw, you've ended up with these cards. When discussions like this happen on the Say the Curse of Strahd subreddit, you often get unhelpful people sort of saying, that's why you should have rigged the card reading, or that's why you should remove cards. That's not of use to you now, unless you run Curse of Strahd again in the future. So I want to do this video to help people who've just run it and want to see if there's ways they can change and wrangle it and sort of steer their campaign in a different direction. And if it helps you, I'd be really grateful. Let me know in the comments. People who are watching this who have other ideas beyond what I've suggested, please leave comments. It might help. You never know, it might help somebody who's reading. None of my 8 tips help. You leave a tip, it helps them. They're very grateful. We're all in this together. We all want to help DMs run the best games they can, or at least that's what I'm in it for. So yeah, just leave comments, discuss points. Maybe I've said something wrong. Maybe one of my points doesn't work. Let's all just have a big fun discussion in the comments. That sounds really sad, but you know what I mean. Upcoming videos, there's going to be more Curse of Strahd videos, there's going to be more Ravenloft videos. Obviously a lot more people watch my Curse of Strahd videos than my Ravenloft videos, I think, because Curse of Strahd is a lot more popular. People want to run Curse of Strahd more than they do want to run a sort of semi-homebrewed Ravenloft campaign. The reason I do both is because I ran Curse of Strahd, now running a Ravenloft campaign that followed on after Curse of Strahd with the same characters, starting from level 10. And we're having loads of fun, and I love talking about it and helping people with it. Some of the Ravenloft videos might help Curse of Strahd DMs, or some of them might talk about bits of Curse of Strahd, so you might want to watch those as well. I've got playlists for Curse of Strahd and playlists of Ravenloft you might want to dig into. I think I've got like 30, 40 videos in each at the moment, so whole archive of videos for both you might want to dive into if this is my first video. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Please watch future videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, Mist Wanderers.